We have roughly, I would say, 3 hours until the wiring harness that we need shows up for the Evo 8. So I'm gonna give myself that many hours to get this STI completely sorted out. If I can't figure it out in that time, then I should go to automotive school or something, because that would mean I'm not very intelligent, right? Anyways, good morning. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 2.8 billion of building a super nice yellow Evo 8. If you haven't been following along, I'm chasing down a P1767 code on my Hawkeye STI. Clamp it. And the code occurred after I put a new steering rack in the car because the old one was leaking. I then put a new steering angle sensor in the car and a new clock spring in the car, and the code still exists. So today, I want to figure that out. I'm starting with the Autel to actually confirm it is the same exact code, the 1767. I don't know why it wouldn't be. And then we can go from there. So I did go check the code. It's super weird because usually you can just erase a code. As you can see here, P1767. So it shows status is old DCCD steering angle circuit. If I erase the code, turn the ignition off, and you wait 15 seconds, and you turn it back on, the code is staying in the system. It's like something is just unplugged. Okay, 15 seconds. Trouble codes are not detected. Okay, it erased that time. Now, let's see if it comes back on right away. Immediately, within a millisecond, it comes on. P1767, status is old. Why is it not a current status? That don't make sense. If I go into live data, steering angle sensor is at 0 degrees, which it should be because the steering wheel is straight. So I downloaded a software called SSM, which I believe stands for Subaru Select Monitor. And I finally got it working. If I could pull it up here. Come on now. So this is what it looks like. Free SSM v1.2.5. Don't mind the crusty fan. I got the test connectors connected on the car. And if we go into the TCM, there was a trouble code. I was able to clear the trouble code with the free SSM software. So let's see if that fixes our problem. Highly doubtful, but it's worth a shot. It did not fix our problem. This here is a new used transmission center diff controller. Pulled it out of Remy's 07 STI. I don't think this is a problem, but I'm gonna give it a shot and see if this fixes it. New controller's in. Did not do nothing like I expected. Okay, looks like our issue is resolved, my friends. I listened to my gut instinct and I pulled the clock spring and angle sensor out of Remy's STI, which is what I'm borrowing parts from. And so far so good. I'm gonna go put a couple feet on the car and see if it works like it should. Now I just need to find an actual good steering angle sensor and clock spring for this car, because clearly the one that I installed that I thought was good, that I bought used, is also bad. We just confirmed that. Well, I'm glad that issue is done and dealt with. A little bit frustrating knowing it could have all been avoided, but it's fixed. So that's cool. Back to the Evo. I'm gonna pull off this starter / alternator harness. Well, it should be an alternator harness, but this one is not. It is missing the entire alternator section out of it. So I got a new one, and it's gonna arrive soon. I also need to get this main power cable sorted. Get it ran through where it needs to go through, grommeted, and all that good stuff. This is the harness that we just pulled off. So this here goes to the starter. This is the constant. This is the trigger. Here's the ground. Here's the ground. This is the 12-volt supply that goes to the trans. And as you can see, there's no power wire for the alternator. That is missing. So this should be a replacement harness that has said alternator wire. Alternator, some evap sort of thing, starter, ground, we're good to go. Let's get this thing cleaned up. And of course this little block right here, we won't be needing this, being that we did the Evo block, the Evo 10 block is what I mean to say with the relocation. So any of that we do not need. Some degreaser, a pressure wash, and compressed air should be all that we need to get this thing all cleaned up. I decided to go through, pull off all of the old electrical tape that's all nasty and dried out, and retape it all. This harness is from '03, so that's a 21-year-old piece of electrical tape. They don't like to last forever. Alrighty, our power harness is complete, all retaped, retaped, and good to go. So let's see how all this works. I wonder why someone would just lop an entire section of harness out. It's not like you don't need an alternator for any sort of build, unless you're, I suppose if it's a full-on drag build maybe, but this car definitely was not that. The whole entire starter and alternator harness is complete and finished up. I need to find a good location to pass the power harness through that runs to the distribution block right here. I'm thinking the best option is going to be right here. It's going to be nice and hidden, snake right around that strut tower there, and it should look nice. I really need to acquire a good set of hole saw bits. That would be ideal for something like this. I have my hole formed here. Now I'm going to take a rubber grommet and put it in our new hole. Of course, metal cutting on that power wire wouldn't be the best thing in the world. You know what I mean? Hole might be a little small. Look how OEM spec that is. That's beautiful. Okay. Take our power wire, toss her through the hole. Okay, here's how it looks finished up. Power wire runs through the entire interior, comes out that hole there, goes into that nice OEM, actual OEM Mitsubishi grommet I pulled off the parts car, loops around, connects to the backside right there. Now you take a factory cover and you clip it on like stock. That's nice. If there was anything I learned with the Type R electrical fiasco and that build, grounds are very, very important. So before I move on, I'm going to add 2 ground wires to the motor, grounding it back to the chassis. One is going to go on the driver's side from the transmission, lower down, back to the frame rail, so it's kind of hidden out of the way. Because factory, one runs from the intake manifold up here, which is kind of ugly if I'm being honest. And then I'm going to add another one on the passenger side from the engine to the passenger side frame rail. Pull off a bit of Cerakote on this transmission where it's going to bolt on, so we get a good contact. And the frame rail as well is going to need some of this paint pulled off. Grounds are important, but usually they're ugly. So I like to make them not ugly if I can. I like to use big thick boy wire. All right, let's see about getting this thing to crank. Grounds are on, starter harness is on, everything's connected, everything's got power, everything's grounded properly. Now I don't have oil in the engine, so I just want to give it a quick and see what happens. So I was doing this last time, but I had no grounds on it last time, so that would make sense. Okay, well, check this out. Green light flashing, I know the cluster's it's a mess, but green light flashing on the dash. So apparently, an 03 Evo has an immobilizer. I wonder if I can program the key with the Autel somehow. Let me grab the Autel. Hopefully I can program the key. The odd thing is, it's the factory key, factory ECU, factory immobilizer, and it cranked last time when this car was complete before it came apart. So I don't know why we're having issues now, but let me grab the Autel and see what we can do. Good old immobilizer. Never would have thought an 03 would have one. Now I do know that we can just grab EvoScan, maybe it's ECU Flash, one of the programs, Evo specific programs, and just disable the immobilizer. My tuning laptop is back at the house, so that'll have to wait till tomorrow. Not that we need to crank it today, but that'd be cool. So the car is giving us an immobilizer issue, which doesn't really make any sense because it's all the factory components as this car had a few months ago when we tore it apart, and it cranked just fine then. So we have a couple different options there, like I was talking about earlier. I could just completely disable the immobilizer system, or we could actually get it fixed and working properly. I think for now, I'm just gonna temporarily disable it because it should be very, very simple. But let's move on from that. I need to get some gauges on the car. Important gauges for any car that is boosted and built, in my opinion. You're gonna want a wideband, definitely. Oil pressure, definitely, especially on a brand new motor. You don't wanna fire this thing up with no oil pressure gauge. And then boost is also nice. And it's cool to look at when you're building lots of boost. Let's start with the most difficult one. Now you may be confused. It's just a gauge, it ain't difficult. Well, I'm gonna make my boost gauge difficult, and the reason is because I'm gonna be putting it inside of our gauge cluster. So if you have an Evo 8 or Evo 9, you know the factory cluster is kind of annoying how it just shows, and don't mind the messed up lens. We'll take care of that. That's nice, that's cool. Gas, coolant temp, Lancer. Now if that said Evolution, I would leave it. But what I'm gonna go ahead and do, and I saw someone else do this, so I ain't gonna take credit for this. But they took a 45 millimeter electric boost gauge and they put that boost gauge in place of where it says Lancer. And it looked amazing. It looked very, very factory. So I picked up the same gauge that they used, which is an Omani 45 millimeter electric boost gauge. We're gonna have to do a ton of trimming on the cluster pack here, but it's all gonna be well worth it at the end of the day. So let's go ahead and get this thing completely disassembled. This clear lens unclips first, which I'm hoping I can just buy a brand new one. That'd be sick. I might try to polish that one out tonight. And like I said, if I can get it polished out, a new OEM one would be nice because you're staring at your gauges all the time. And you're looking through some crusty, not clear lens, wouldn't be very nice. So next up, this black piece here, I believe stock it's supposed to be silver, but somebody got a little carried away with a rattle can. It's now black. That guy comes off. So everything's gonna stay. I'm not gonna mess with the needles or any of that good stuff. This RPM face right here has a little bit of a bubble we're gonna have to take care of later on. So we're gonna have to Dremel this section out to fit this guy. It's gonna go right in there. This is gonna be sweet if we can get it done properly. Now we are gonna lose a few indicators. Here's what we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose our doors being open indicator, immobilizer key indicator, seat belt, and something else. It's like a washer, some sort of washer thing. So if you care to keep those, don't do this mod. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the bulbs out for each of those indicators I just talked about. In this back brown sheet right here, let's go ahead and unscrew that. I really enjoy doing these little custom mods where it's very unique to the car. On the Blue 8 that I built a while ago, I put the boost gauge in where the center clock goes. That was pretty cool. But I think this is gonna be more OE. Put that out of the way. So I need to measure once. Measure 50 times, cut once. That's gonna be so sweet. We just need to make sure that we actually get it centered properly. Okay, next up, I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the glass on this guy so it can actually sit flush like we need it to. So it's got a little wire depinning tool, I think you'd call it. Just gonna pry this entire edge out. This might be an all-night project. I have a feeling it's gonna be taking me a while to get this done nice and clean. I want it to look as factory as possible. That piece comes off. That guy stays. And you can see how tiny this thing really is. It's a 45 mil. A typical gauge is a 52 mil or maybe a 60 mil. Well, I got one right here. So this is a factory or a AEM, like standard size gauge. You can see the difference. Trying to fit this, not happening. So I have it all marked where I need to cut. And I'm gonna start off with cutting with just a little pair of snips, wire snips. More so a set of flush cuts for zip ties. And then after I get all this snipped, I'm gonna go to town with the Dremel and Dremel it out. Feels a little bit hairy, just ripping apart a gauge cluster, but this isn't nothing compared to what we had to do on that Type R to fit the Haltech in there. I'm debating how I'm gonna get the gauge itself to sit and not move around. Maybe a little bit of epoxy. Guess we'll see how tight we can be with the Dremel. Okay, moving along. Decided to bust out my favorite tool in the world, this guy here, and really just make this as clean as possible. A little bit deeper, the width is there, the outside diameter is there, just the depth is not quite there. And I'm wondering if I can find, I'm not the biggest fan of gauge replacements, but being that this one has this bubble in it anyway, it'd be cool to find just the all black instead of the red, have it white to match the gauge even better. That would be sick. So we have the gauge sitting properly in the cluster. I know there's plastic shavings everywhere, it's a mess. But being that this sticks up just a tiny bit higher than the Lancer emblem, I'm taking my little file guy here and I'm shaving this piece down and in, maybe like 1/8 of an inch. So very carefully. We don't want to take too much off because this is actually going to be what holds the boost gauge in. Now it is a tight fit. It's not going to move around much, if any. But if we have this piece fitted properly, then it definitely will never move. And we won't have to do any sort of epoxy or glue to hold it in. All right, boys, gauge is in. Sitting exactly where it needs to sit. It is a tight fit, like I said, in this cluster. This guy is shaved down. Now the last modification that I want to do, that we need to do before, as you can see, it's a tight fit. Before we go ahead and blow this thing off and get it all cleaned up, is we need to create space in the backside here for the wiring to pass through. Let's hope we don't mess up this whole entire circuit board. So here is how it looks on the front side. Boost is right there. and it looks beautiful. Like I said though, if I could get the rest of these guys to be white, I think that'd be a super nice like OEM plus look. And then the 2 wires coming out the backside. Let's hope everything still works. I'm not gonna fully assemble this thing, but I do have a part that I wanna slap on. Thankfully it's already painted black, so that's gonna work well with this piece right here. This is a Rex Speed low gloss carbon fiber gauge face, or cluster face, I guess they call it. And I think this is gonna be very nice looking inside the cluster. I already have everything cleaned up, just wiped down with IPA. Let's hope this guy fits good. Oh yeah, I'm glad I went with the low gloss. That's gonna look really nice. You can't say that ain't sick. Very subtle, being the low gloss. More of a matte carbon fiber look. This guy screws on the back side. Also, Jared just came in the shop and he happened to remind me that I have done some mod like this before. On the black Evo 8, I put a wideband gauge in the gauge cluster apparently. I don't even remember my own builds. So I was able to find a replacement on one of these guys. Not in the States though, it's overseas. I don't care to wait, so I'm gonna try to refurbish this thing. If we destroy it, then we can wait. I'm gonna be using just step 3 of the headlight restoration kit from Cerakote. Step 1 and 2 is where we sand it down. Step 3 is the clear coating. And I'm pretty certain that if I apply just this, it should make it brand new looking again. It was pretty messed up before. Guess we'll see. All right, let's let that soak in and see how it looks. The clear ceramic was definitely the right move for this lens. Once again, only step 3 of the headlight restoration kit and not step 1 or 2. Made it essentially brand new. Well, I figured I had a oil pressure gauge here at the shop. I indeed do not. I have my wideband. An AM wideband is what we're gonna be running. And then I had to order in, of course, an AM oil pressure gauge as well. I'm not gonna let that stop me from doing our first start if it comes down to it. I do have a manual gauge here that I can easily just slap on the motor real quick, make sure we're building ample oil pressure and whatnot. And really the only other thing I need to figure out this immobilizer issue. Easy. And I need a base map. So Mr. Joshua Vader, this is your reminder to go ahead and send me a base map, sir. Thank you if you're watching this video. I ain't gonna say the first start's tomorrow, but it may very well be tomorrow. We'll see how far we can get. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did not, I'm sorry, but that's fine. I don't care. If you did, that's great. And thank you for watching. See you guys tomorrow when we're 18 days out from leaving, where this car has to be done. Goodbye.